It's time for live chat. Ooh, the Psychetruth live chat. Every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time on your YouTube machine. Live chat, live chat, live chat, live chat. I'll answer your questions about whatever you want to talk about on the Psychetruth. Live chat, live chat, live chat, live chat. The Psychetruth. Live chat, live chat, live chat, live chat. Thank you so much for joining me today, everyone. My name is Corrina Rachel. I'm a certified holistic health coach, and this is my weekly live Q&A session. So if you are watching at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time, August the 12th, then we are live right now. And to all of you in the chat room right now, thank you so much for being here. So this is a Q&A session where you ask questions and I do my very best to answer them. The topics are health, wellness, weight loss, nutrition, diet, motivation for living healthy, really anything about wellness and being happy and living well. That is all fair game for this live chat Q&A. So I want to start by thanking everyone who is here in the chat room right now. So we've got some familiar faces. We also have some new faces. I guess I technically can't see your faces, but your screen names anyway. So Jess, Tess, Cynthia Cruz, just me? Is anyone else dancing? They certainly should be. That's a good question. Good morning is here. Richard Dingo. Good to see you, Rich. Glad you could make it today. Brian Keith Counterman Jr., Taylor Chandler, Ruslan Provodnikov. I don't know if I said that right or not. But anyways, so all of you, thank you so much for being here. Each and every one of you. I cannot thank you enough for taking your time to come check out the live chat and join me. So like I said, this is a Q&A session all about health. So what I'm going to do is start with the questions that were left beforehand on the Psychetruth Facebook page. And my computer is a little lag-tastic today, so please just bear with me as my computer is just a little bit slow, but hopefully everything is working well enough. It won't even load comments for me right now, so I can't see if y'all are talking to me right now or not. But y'all, let me know how it looks. Let me know how it sounds. Let me know if it's okay. Hopefully the comments will load in time that I can see your answers, apparently. So, Evelina Niskanen. Evelina, thank you for your question. Evelina's question left on the Facebook page. I usually like to cook with avocado oil because it has a high smoke point. Are there any other oils with a high or higher smoke point? What oil do you recommend to use for cooking? Okay, so Evelina, fantastic question. So a lot of you probably have heard me talk before about coconut oil and recommending coconut oil as one of the best oils to cook with. And it's because, like Evelina has mentioned here, it has a high smoke point, or it has a high tolerance for heat. So when we start heating up oils, their chemical structure literally changes. All right, so when we start to heat up an oil like olive oil or whatever it may be, it literally changes the chemical structure and it starts to degrade some of the nutritional benefits that we usually would correspond with that oil. So olive oil as an example, when we think about the health benefits of olive oil and these beneficial fats, you need to understand that you're really only getting those health benefits if you're having the oil in its natural state, when it's uncooked. Because once you start cooking these oils like butter, olive oil, etc., their chemical structure literally changes, and that means that their nutritional benefits that they offer also are changing. So with coconut oil and avocado oil, you have more heat tolerance, or the chemical molecules, the chemical structures stay intact, can endure, at higher heats. They can endure higher heats. So if you actually put in on Google or your favorite search engine, whatever it may be, smoke points of cooking oils, you can actually see a breakdown list of all of the different cooking oils in their smoke point. So avocado oil, coconut oil, those are kind of my go-tos when it comes to cooking. And more often than not, what I prefer to do, the healthiest way to cook, is actually just cooking with water. Okay, so that would be like steaming or poaching in the case of fish. Okay, so that's where you'd actually fill up a pot of water and then you put the piece of fish into the water and it cooks in that heated water rather than in heated oil. Now, you do lose some of the taste when you're just steaming with water. Okay, and I totally understand that. But my kind of workaround for that is that I will steam the vegetables in just water, or cook the fish or eggs or whatever it may be. Well, eggs I do use coconut oil for, and it's awesome. It tastes so good. But in situations where you can just use water to cook something, use water to cook it, and then maybe pour oil or butter over it after it's cooked. So now you're still getting that melted butter deliciousness, but you're not actually heating the oil itself up to a really high temperature. And you're gonna be able to keep the nutritional value of your meal a lot more in doing that. And just cooking with water, again, low heat. Low temperatures. When we blast things up and cook them at a really high temperature, we're going to be degrading a lot of the nutrients. So low heat, cooking in water is always going to be the healthiest way to go. So Evelina, wonderful question. Thank you so much for leaving it. We have all questions from new names that I don't recognize on the Facebook, which I think is fun. It's always cool to see new questions coming in. All right, so the next one comes from Queen Esther Joy Galvan. I don't know if I'm saying that right. I apologize if I'm not. I wish that my comments would load here so that I could see if it's working. Because I have no way right now. I have no way of knowing. Anyways, I'm just going to cross my fingers, hope it's working, hope you can hear me. All right, Queen Esther's question. Do you think that stevia or erythritol are good natural sweeteners as a replacement for sugar in coffee? Okay, so stevia and erythritol, these are two very different sweeteners. So stevia is an herb, okay, which means it's a type of plant. And it usually will often will come in a little tincture, okay, which means that it's been liquefied. The stevia has been liquefied. You can also get stevia in packets nowadays. You can pretty much get it in any different form. So stevia is an herb, and yes, stevia is a great natural sweetener and certainly a great alternative to sugar. So when we're talking about white sugar, this is a highly refined sweetener. And I could go on and on and on about sugar. If y'all want to hear me go on and on about sugar, y'all let me know in the chat room. You can leave the question in the chat. But for now, I'm going to just keep on the subject of natural sweeteners. So stevia is great. It's an herbal sweetener. The healthiest way to consume stevia is in its most natural, least processed state. And you can actually, I think if you look up, I can't remember what it's called. Certainly it's probably organic. I don't know if it's necessarily raw, but the idea is that if you look up, look for a stevia product that's minimally processed. So it's not going to come in the little handy dandy tincture. It usually comes in a big bag, and sometimes it's still green. It's still slightly green tint to it. Again, because it's a plant, right? So that's going to be the healthiest way to consume stevia. Now, erythritol is a sugar alcohol, and there's actually a variety of different sugar alcohols that are now being used as natural sweeteners. Now, the sugar alcohols are certainly not as bad for you as the refined sugar itself, but they are not as safe for you as something like stevia, which is an herb. Okay, so I would actually prefer something like stevia over erythritol. Now, there is a sugar alcohol called xylitol, Xylitol, xylitol. Xylitol looks like a really safe natural sweetener in the research that's been done on it so far, and it's actually been shown to even have its own health benefits and be beneficial for the teeth and stuff like that. So of the sugar alcohols, xylitol would be my preferred one. Stevia, I think, is actually been preferred over the sugar alcohols because you can find it in its natural state, and you're using something that is really not a processed ingredient or a processed product. Now, my favorite sweeteners are the ones that are, I would consider even more natural. Well, maybe not more natural than stevia, but certainly easier to come by. All right, so that would be things like honey, maple syrup, dates. These are kind of the three biggies in my personal opinion. If you're using an organic, 100% natural, so when you look at syrup, for instance, you need to either read the ingredients or make sure it's something that literally says, 100% pure maple syrup on the label. A lot of the different syrups that are out there on the grocery store shelves, if you actually read the ingredient label, they're going to contain a lot of sugar, maybe they even contain some kind of modified corn something or other, and this is still a highly processed ingredient. So what you're looking for to get the health benefits, because yes, there actually are nutrients in maple syrup, okay, we get lots of minerals, we get lots of B vitamins. So if you want to get those benefits, you need to make sure you have like 100% natural maple syrup in its purest, most natural form. Again, preferably organic if you can find that and if it's affordable. And I believe that grade B is what they recommend in terms of the most healthful maple syrup that's out there. Now, I know that honey and maple syrup maybe are not the best sweeteners for coffee. They work great in tea, all right? I definitely like putting honey in my tea. But as far as coffee goes, stevia may be your best route. Agave nectar, again, here's something that is natural, but it's pretty highly processed. Okay, so when you think about the agave plant and all the processing, all the chemical changes and processing it goes through so that it can become this liquid in a little tube, that's a lot of processing. So while agave nectar is certainly preferable to sugar and artificial sweeteners, it's something that we don't want to be using too much, all right? I think that one of the most important things, especially when we're talking about sweeteners, is to just not go overboard. And if you are, really concerned with your health and stuff like that, I would recommend having a variety of these different sweeteners so that you're not just always using one. Always having stevia or always having agave. Use maple syrup and honey where you can use them. Dates are great for sweetening things like smoothies and stuff like that. You can even, there's tons of things you can do with dates, but just look at ways that you can use some of these more natural sweeteners so that you're not overdoing it on things like stevia and erythritol or agave nectar. All right, Queen Esther, excellent question. Thank you so much for leaving it. All right, so here we go. I've finally got my comments loaded. I'm just going to peep up here and make sure that it looks like it's working. I love these emojis. They're like little yellow jelly dots. All right, nice guitar. You made me smile. Is anyone else dancing? Okay, I guess that was a question about during my live chat theme song. All right, so I'm not seeing any comments related to volume or anything like that. So I'm assuming that it's all working okay. I'm going to fly through these last couple Facebook questions. So for those of you guys in the chat room, I know you're all sitting there. I saw there's already a lot of questions coming in, which is fantastic. If you want to guarantee your question gets answered, follow Psychetruth on our Facebook page and leave your question on the live chat announcement that I'll make a few hours before the chat goes live. All right, so forgive me, Gahi HDZ. Gahi HDZ. I have no idea how to say your name, or if that's probably not even your real name. I don't know. But the question, which is the most important part. I want to know if it's good to take things like ginseng, ginkgo biloba, and other supplements for energy, or is it a waste of money? Would you give us some good alternatives? Okay, I'm gonna get a little bit more comfortable here. I'm like killing my back trying to lean over the computer. Okay, I gotta practice what I preach sometimes. Practice what I preach. Okay, ginkgo biloba, ginseng. Okay, so again, we're talking about herbs. All right, now, man, I could talk for hours and hours and hours on any of these subjects. So one of the biggest challenges for me is trying to just focus it down. What is the most important thing? How can I answer you in hopefully not 20 minutes, which is common for me, as a lot of you know. All right, so yes, these herbs have benefits, okay? And there is clinical research and studies on these different herbs like ginseng and ginkgo biloba where they do find positive effects on immune system, positive effects on different ways that the body makes energy. There are a lot of different health benefits claimed to be associated with these things. Some of them are substantiated with actual research, and some of them aren't. Okay, and that is really kind of a common thing you're going to see with a lot of different supplements. For any different supplement that is out there on the market or growing out of the ground, there's going to potentially end up being a lot of different health benefits and claims that are made around that supplement. And largely those claims end up being made because someone does experience that benefit. Okay, it's not because somebody just sits there and makes something up wildly out of nowhere. It's because there are certain people who really do experience this certain benefit. But one of the important things to understand is that, you know, this goes with anything, any supplement, not just talking about ginseng and ginkgo. Just because it works one way for one person doesn't necessarily guarantee it's going to work that way for everyone else. You know, just because, as you know, what do they say if you're watching an infomercial? Results not typical or something like that. The bottom line is that, you know, we as people can't expect that we're all going to have the exact same experience with every food or every supplement or every diet, right? All of our bodies are different. There's a lot of different factors that influence our health in the moment. What is the state of our health? What is the state of our body? So when we're looking at supplements, it's really important to recognize that, you know, for most cases, it's not like there's one single supplement that is going to have this remarkably huge effect on your life. Now, the only exceptions I would make would be for things like probiotics, omega-3s. Those are kind of like the main supplements that I really think are important. But when we're talking about supplements that are for more acute purposes, okay, like handling energy problems, something, you know, that is an herbal supplement or even a dietary supplement, we can't necessarily, I don't know how to say this, but, you know, I think that a lot of times we have big expectations on things, and even though that thing can be beneficial for us, it might not necessarily have the benefit that we're expecting. And largely, I think that comes from the way that a lot of these different things are advertised, a lot of the marketing that goes into it. And again, I'm not just talking about ginseng right now, but I think it's a prime example where there's a lot of different ginseng and ginkgo biloba products out there on the market now. Lots and lots and lots of them. And there's lots of different claims being made about them. So what's the bottom line? What's the take-home message? The bottom line is that if you want to get all of the health benefits from any type of herb, you really need to consider how that herb is grown and how that herb is harvested. What's the processing that goes into it? So this is really similar to what we were just talking about a moment ago when we're talking about stevia. All right, for anything that's a plant growing in the ground, you have considerations on how's it grown, what is it sprayed with, is it subjected to pesticides or fungicides, how much processing does it go through once it's picked. You know, when we want to harness the incredible powers of plant-based foods or supplements or herbs, the best way to do that is to have something that is as fresh as possible and as minimally processed as possible. And so this is the same thing I talk about when I talk about the foods that we eat and nutrition, right? We want to have things that are minimally processed. So when you're looking for your ginseng or your ginkgo biloba, what you want to look for are words like wild crafted or wild harvested. And basically what that means is it's not being grown on a farm. When they are, actually growing large amounts of different herbs, again, they're talking about lots of different herbs and really all different foods for that matter. When they're being grown in large amounts on farms, they're usually getting sprayed with pesticides and who knows what all different things are going into that. When you have something that is wild crafted or wild harvested, there's these different words like that. That means that this is a plant that was growing in the wild in its natural conditions, and that is the plant that they use as the basis of their product that they make or whatever. So when we look at all of the different ginseng and ginkgo biloba products that are out there, I would say that a lot of them probably are a waste of money because they're being made with an herb, with a plant that was not grown in the right conditions. Perhaps it was sprayed with something. Perhaps it, the thing about these different supplements is we don't know anything about how they're grown or what they're sprayed with. I mean, we really don't even know. They could, all be being grown inside with artificial light. Maybe they're not even getting actual sunlight, and we don't know that. So that's why looking for something like wild crafted or wild harvested is going to be the number one sign that that herb that you're purchasing was grown in its natural environment and is in its healthiest state. Looking for organic can be another way to go, but it's going to be incredibly expensive to have organically grown herbs. So again, looking for the wild crafted or wild harvested may be your best option. So I hope that answered your question. I know I kind of went off on a big tangent there, but that's a really big topic. And I hope that for those of you who just sat there and listened to me talk through that, I hope you understand that a lot of those statements I was making are general statements that can be made about any kind of herb or any kind of supplement. Look for something that's organic or minimally something that says wild crafted, or just indicates to you that it was grown in the most natural way. Again, you always want to look at the ingredient list of any supplement. If your supplement has modified cornstarch and sugar and EDTA, put it back. That's an indication of something that is highly processed and not in its natural state. All right, here's the last question on the Facebook, and then I'm coming in to the chat room. Michelle Reese, I'm working on improving my diet and losing some weight. I'm vegetarian, but I eat many of the good for you high-fat foods. My question is, while trying to lose weight, do I need to limit how much avocado, olives, olive oil, nuts, seeds, etc. I eat because of their fat content? Okay, Michelle, this is a really good question. So this question kind of dovetails on one of my favorite and what I feel is the one of the absolute most important topics, which is fats. One of the most important and most delicious topics, I might add. Okay, so a lot of the message that we get in our media, on TV, stuff like that is telling us that you want to avoid eating fats. You should be having fat-free milk, fat-free peanut butter. You shouldn't eat the egg yolk. The persistence of, marketing these fat-free foods is, hopefully something that is observable to all of you. I'm not just sitting here feeling like there's this big demonizing of fats. This is something that we've probably all recognized. And if you're sitting there in the chat room right now, let me know, are you someone who is on this fat-free bandwagon? Are you someone who believes that we should limit fats in the diet and that we shouldn't be eating fats? Hopefully you already left your answer, because now I'm going to tell you what I think. What I have found based on my research, my findings about health, and my own personal experiences with trying to control my weight and trying to control hunger, okay, fats are something the body needs. Actually, our brain is mostly made of fats. All right, so when we talk about cholesterol, it's important to recognize that cholesterol isn't something that's just bad. It's something our body needs, and it's actually something our body uses to literally make our brain and make our neurons or nerve cells. So it's not that cholesterol is a bad thing. The bottom line is that we need to look at the kinds of fats we're eating and recognize that there's actually a lot of different factors when we're looking at things like heart disease. And what they're finding is that those good healthy fats, like you get in avocados, olives, nuts, seeds, the different oils, okay? And of course the same kind of fats we get in fish, all right? These are actually really beneficial to us. They're really healthy for us. And not only are they really healthy for our body, but they are essential for signaling to the brain that we have satisfied our hunger and we can stop eating. All right, so what I mean by that is, have you ever been in the situation where you sit down to eat something and you eat and you eat and you eat and you still feel hungry? And you eat and you eat and you eat and you still feel hungry. And maybe even 30 minutes or an hour after you eat a really large meal, you still feel hungry. So one of the biggest examples that I actually remember this from my childhood is that my mom would try to give me cereal. And we would eat, I would eat cereal in the morning and we would have it with skim milk. And I remember being a kid and being like, Mom, I don't want to eat cereal. It only makes me hungrier. And I didn't understand why until now, 20 years later. And I realized that, it's because there's no fat in the meal, no healthy fat in the meal. Also because the refined carbohydrates in cereal spike your blood sugar up really, really high. And then as your blood sugar spikes really high, insulin comes in and plunges it back down really low. And that's why we feel really hungry after eating lots of sugar or after eating lots of refined carbohydrates. Like when you try to have potato chips as a snack and they make you hungrier, or you have a Coke and it makes you hungrier. It's because of that blood sugar spike. I'm totally going off on a tangent, but when we're talking about weight loss, this is important, right? Because the only way we're going to be able to lose weight is if we can control our hunger. If our hunger is controlling us and we're in a constant battle with our body to try and starve ourselves, okay, because we're trying to not overeat, we're trying to avoid certain foods because we're trying to lose weight, a lot of people get into this kind of spiral of starvation. And maybe you're still eating foods, but if you're not eating the right foods, you're technically still starving your body. So this is a really important thing to know about fats, which is that you need those healthy fats to help send the signals to your brain that your body is satiated and you're no longer hungry and you can stop eating. Okay, so now to address Michelle's question. So her question is, if I'm trying to lose weight, do I need to limit those fatty foods? So this is a really good question. Unfortunately, there's not really a, what would I say, like cold, not stone cold, but what am I looking for? There's not really a one-size-fits-all answer to this question. And what I mean by that is that the amount of nutrients that we need, the amount of food that we need to eat, okay? And certainly when we're talking about the different macronutrients, protein, fats, and carbohydrates, our body's nutritional needs for these different things are going to be determined by a lot of different factors, okay? Our age, how active we are. Okay, so if you're somebody who is really active, I'm sure you know this already, but you eat more food. If you are really active and you get a lot of exercise, you're going to need a higher caloric intake than somebody who lives a more sedentary lifestyle. And it's funny because I actually see this question a lot where people say, I always find that when I work out, I end up eating more, so I'm going to stop working out. It's okay. If you are being active, you're supposed to eat more. Your body needs to eat more. So that's one of the big factors. And Michelle, I would say to you, you really need to consider something like that. How active are you? Okay. And if you are being really active, then yeah, I would say go for it. And do not feel like you need to limit those foods. Now, the cool thing about fats is that our body really only has, a certain amount, and this goes for any kind of nutrient, carb, protein, or whatever, a certain amount that it needs. And then once your body gets enough, it's actually going to signal to your brain that you don't need to eat anymore. And, sometimes, like, have you ever noticed when you sit down to eat a meal and you sit down to eat and the beginning of the meal, everything on the plate looks so good. It's so appetizing. And then at the end of the meal, fast forward 40 minutes, everything on the plate looks so gross. You're like, oh, I can't believe I just ate that. Or, I couldn't eat another bite. And this is because our body is signaling to us like, hey, you don't need any more. Now, when we're talking about our body's craving mechanisms and our body's ability to regulate hunger and how much we need to eat, this system really only works if we're eating a natural diet. So if you're eating a lot of processed foods, refined carbohydrates, fast foods, and junk foods, these highly processed and refined foods completely kind of throw off your body's, not only your body's metabolism, but your body's ability to signal satiety, or however you say that word. I don't know how you say it. Satiety, being satisfied. Okay? It means when your hunger is satisfied. Once you're on a more natural diet, and your body starts coming into balance, into homeostasis, okay? Into just better functioning all around, those craving mechanisms and those mechanisms for where your body will tell your brain, hey, you're full, stop eating. You don't need to eat anymore. Will also come into balance and will also be functioning more properly. So, Michelle, my answer to you is listen to your body. If you're eating well and taking care of yourself, you should be able to trust your body's communication, okay? And our cravings, all of those different things are ways that our body communicates with us. So if we're craving things like avocado and olives, I would say that's a sign that our body needs those healthy fats. And it's at the point that your body has enough of those fats, those foods should stop being appealing, okay? And your hunger should actually subside enough that you no longer have a desire to eat those things. I would also consider how active you are, and on days that you are more active reward yourself with more of those fats that you love to eat. That's something that has worked really well for me. On days that I'm not as active, I eat really, really clean and I eat really well. And on days that I'm a little bit more active, I let myself splurge on those things that I really like to have, like olives and avocado and guacamole, and I love all these things. And I may even splurge and eat some ice cream or something like that. So it's a good way to kind of almost incentivize ourselves to be more active, because then we reward ourselves by eating a bit more food and maybe eating more of these foods that we limit on days that we're less active. I hope that answers your question. In the grand scheme of things, if you are eating healthy and you are working out, there should not be, you should be able to still lose weight even eating those foods. You certainly should not cut those foods out of your diet completely. But if you are working out a lot, and you're still having trouble losing weight, then maybe you do want to look at some of those fattier foods and just decreasing the amount of them that you're eating. Okie dokie. So thank you so much. Awesome questions left on the Facebook page. So here I am in the chat room. Nisa Bobs Stanley, thank you for coming, and you are not too late. We've got at least an hour left here. All right, so looking for questions. I should have said this earlier, but for those of you in the chat room, if you leave some question marks at the beginning of your question, it will help it stand out to me in this big list of comments that's now being left. I'm just going to take one little sip of water because I am parched. Somebody just drove by with a really loud bumping bass, something or other. Okay, here we go. So, good morning. I love your screen name. Good morning, even though it's not morning right now in Texas. Maybe for some of you it's morning. I think for a lot of you it's the middle of the night. I apologize for that. Actually, that might be kind of a funny little thing to see. Everyone, you can leave. What time is it where you are? Is it morning? Is it night? Is it evening? No matter what time it is, thank you so much for being here. I know a lot of you stay up late to be able to come to the live chat, and I think that is so incredibly sweet. So thank you for being here. All right, so good morning's question. Is whole wheat chapati good for health? And I apologize if I did not pronounce that right. So chapati is an unleavened flatbread from Sri Lanka, India, Nepal, Bangladesh, and Pakistan. It is a common staple in South Asia, as well as amongst South Asian expatriates throughout the world. That is a little, the little blurb off of Wikipedia where I just searched here. So this is, all of the different cultures, most of the different cultures will have some kind of a carbohydrate as the staple of the diet, or at least as a prominent part of the diet. So we think about rice, we think about bread, and here is an example, chapati. So an unleavened flatbread. It's kind of, it almost looks like a pita bread almost. So here is an answer, and this is an answer that's going to apply. This is a general answer that's going to apply to all types of grain and bread and carbohydrate type foods, not just the chapati, but this is something that every single culture, pretty much no matter where we live, there's going to be foods like this, and this is a really important question. So here's the bottom line about grains. When we're talking about grains, and this really, I feel, oh, it's raining. That's wonderful. It has not rained in, maybe a month or two. It is not raining very much, but every little bit counts when you're in Texas. Okay, so this kind of dovetails into what we were talking about earlier, and in terms of a theme, for me, this is a very big theme. So foods that are in their natural, most least processed state. Yes, I just said most least processed, forgive me. In their most natural, least processed state. So when we look at most of the foods that are made with grains, usually these are things like bread, tortillas, chapati, pita bread, and what we need to understand is that these are processed foods, okay? There's no bread that grows off of trees, or if you looked into a wheat field, you wouldn't see the tortillas sitting there, right? So they harvest the grain, then they grind it into a flour, then they add whatever ingredients to the flour and bake it to make these different types of bread, these different types of carbohydrate foods. And like I said, there's quite a lot of them. Every different culture kind of has their carbohydrate staple. So this process of, taking the grains, harvesting them, grinding them down, milling them into flour, this is processing, all right? And it's changing the chemical structure of the grain. Now, when we talk about whole wheat, the difference between whole wheat and white wheat, or just regular wheat, or not regular wheat bread, but regular bread that we think about that's usually white, is that a whole wheat bread or chapati or whatever it may be actually uses the whole entire wheat grain. So if you actually, took the wheat grain, we all kind of have a visual image of what that looks like, right? Growing out of a field, picked it up and looked at it. There's actually 3 different parts of the grain. And it's like the germ, the endosperm, and the something else. I don't know. I can't remember. But basically, there's a really starchy part, the white part. And then there's the germ part that has all of the fiber, the minerals, a lot of the nutrients. And then there's a third part of the grain, and it has some other stuff in it too, enzymes, who knows. But the bottom line is that to get the health benefits of the grain, you need to eat all 3 parts of the grain. Okay, so that's what whole wheat is. It uses all 3 parts of the grain. Okay, and when we think about white bread, white tortillas, any kind of just regular bread or hamburger bun or whatever in a regular restaurant or whatever that isn't whole wheat, they're literally just using that starchy part of the grain. They're not using the whole part of the grain to make the flour. So yes, whole wheat is always going to be a much better option than just the white bread, the regular one. Okay. Now, with that said, there's a lot of whole wheat products out there now, especially in America, okay, where they're like, oh, it's whole wheat bread. But if you actually look at the ingredients, it'll say whole wheat, enriched flour. Okay, so they're actually just using a little bit of the whole wheat flour, but they're still using that refined white flour with the partial, it's like a partial grain, okay? If there's whole wheat bread, there's also partial wheat bread. That's the white bread, the regular Iron Kids white bread that we think of. So in order to get the benefits of the whole wheat, you really need to read the ingredients and make sure it says 100% whole wheat flour. So if you're in a more if you're in a place that is not, mass producing food like we are here in the United States, there's a really good chance that the people who are making the food really are using whole wheat flour. They're not using a lot of crazy ingredients, and they really are making something that is as close to natural, as it can be. Okay, so I don't know really how to give you a rule of thumb, but for me, the rule of thumb is to look at the ingredient list. And, like I said, if you look at the ingredient list on a lot of wheat breads here in the United States, they still have just as long of an ingredient list as the other one. Sometimes they might have a little bit of wheat in them. Sometimes they just use caramel color to make it look darker. And they don't even actually use whole grain wheat. You really need to read the ingredients. Now, the healthiest way to eat grains is to have them in an even less processed state than the bread or the chapati or whatever. So you actually take out that whole step of grinding the grain into flour and baking it into a food. You'd cut all of those steps out, and you just have the grain in as close to its natural state as when it comes out of the ground. So here at the grocery stores we have here, if you go into the bulk area, the bulk section, you can actually buy, brown rice, quinoa, oat groats, or steel cut oats. That would be like the minimally processed oat, steel cut oats or oat groats, amaranth, millet, buckwheat, which is actually not a grain, so it's like quinoa. It's actually a seed, but buckwheat and quinoa, these are really good, kind of grain alternatives. And all of these different grains, they prepare just like rice. They're really, really easy to prepare. So the best way to get the health benefits from the grains is to have them in that as natural state as possible. Yes, whole wheat is always going to be better than the non-whole wheat version, but you really have to read the ingredient list to know how natural it is, what all kind of crazy chemicals is in it. If it's something that's made in a local bakery or even something that's homemade, that's always going to be a better option than something that comes from a grocery store and has a really long ingredient list. Teresa Randolph, can you do a tumbling video tutorial like for gymnastics? I personally will not be doing the tutorial because I'm not a gymnast, but I will probably be filming it. I'll be behind the camera because I pretty much do all of the filming of all of our fitness videos. So Joy will probably do that, Joy Scola. Who's been doing all of our gymnastics videos. I'm sure she will be excited to do another round of gymnastics videos very soon. So. Richard Dingo, how about relationship stuff, or is that just with Melissa? I'll try to answer a relationship question. It's not really necessarily my field of expertise, but I'm certainly happy to give you an answer. Headley77, thank you so much for coming in, Stephen. It's great to see you. Haley Lauren is here. Just Tess, you're always a joy to have here in the chat room. Thank you so much for being here. What do you think of a pure raw alkaline diet? Maxell619. A pure raw alkaline diet. So I'm thinking you're talking like raw veganism. So there's kind of two different questions here. A raw vegan diet and this whole question of an alkaline diet. So I'm thinking in my head, how far to go off on talking about alkalizing foods. So most of you hopefully have a concept of pH. All right, pH balance. A lot of times on beauty care products, you'll see things, it'll actually say pH balanced, right? So pH has to do with the concentration of hydrogen ions in whatever, in a liquid, in a thing. When we're talking about pH, okay, the body, every different part of the body, when we're talking about the top of our skin, inside of our body, inside of our cell, inside of our heart, inside of our stomach, all of these different areas of the body have an optimal pH, an optimal pH at which they function the best. And what they have found is that when you're looking at the pH of different areas of the body, there are lots of benefits associated with having a more alkaline pH than an acidic one. For instance, you probably have heard the statement that cancer cells cannot survive in an alkaline environment. That's one of the big statements that's often made. Now, it's kind of a broad generalization, but the core concept of pH, of trying to control our pH and trying to be alkaline, does have a lot of merit. So when we talk about foods that are acid forming, okay, so that would mean that they are contributing to a more acidic environment. So it can be kind of confusing because sometimes foods that are acidic themselves, like lemon, are actually alkaline forming in the body. So they have an alkalizing effect on the body, even though the food itself is acidic. Now that doesn't always hold true because you can take something like soda, which is very acidic, and it also is acid forming in the body. Because of all the sugar, because it's so highly processed, it's acid forming when we ingest it. So when we talk about eating an alkaline diet, usually this is a very high vegetable diet. Oftentimes it's vegetarian or vegan, and it's because animal meats, animal products, are often acid forming in the body. They contribute to a more acidic pH of the body. And for a lot of different reasons, they have ended up finding that this is harmful. Okay, it contributes to inflammation and just overall makes a more just dangerous environment inside of the body. So our tissues, our organs are more likely to sustain damage in an acidic environment than in an alkaline environment. So I do think that there is a lot of merit in the idea of eating an alkaline diet. Now, with that said, I also think that there are certain, there's a certain, there's a certain balance. I think that in a lot of instances, we end up seeing these different products come out like alkaline water. Let's see, you can really alkalize your water and alkalize this, and maybe you take alkaline drops. We're going to have a lot more effect controlling the pH of our body when we do it with our diet than when we do it with any of these weird supplements or drinking highly alkaline water or something like that. So I do think it's important that people have this consideration on trying to eat things that are more alkalizing to the body. And coincidentally, the things that are really alkalizing just happen to be the things that are really good for us, like vegetables. Okay, when we're talking about natural foods, things like lemons are really alkalizing. So an alkalizing diet, yes, I think is something that is very beneficial. And I think that people will benefit by trying to optimize or maximize the amount of alkaline forming foods in the body and staying away from these more acid forming foods. So that's things like coffee, sugar, animal meats, especially when they're fried or cooked at really high temperatures like barbecue. So basically all of those things that most people really like to eat the most, they're contributing to a very acidic environment inside the body. That's really not good for people. So so now let's talk about the other half of this question, which is a raw vegan diet. I would just echo what I said a little while ago, which is that just because something works for one person doesn't necessarily guarantee that it's going to work for everyone. There are a lot of people for whom a raw vegan diet has literally changed their entire lives, improved their lives just 100-fold, helping them to feel better and healthier. But a raw vegan diet is not practical for everyone, and not everyone is going to feel as great on that diet as the durian writer will. Okay? So when we're looking at diets, when we're looking at how we're going to eat, I just encourage you to listen to your body. And what I mean by that is listen to your food cravings. Listen to what your body is telling you. Listen to how you feel after you eat certain things. Our food cravings are there to help guide us because our stomach can't communicate directly to our brain. One of the ways that our body can communicate is with food cravings. So if you're craving lots of salt, that's probably an indication that you are mineral deficient. Usually our food cravings indicate something. Now, unfortunately, a diet of highly processed foods and refined sugar can kind of throw off our body's craving mechanism. And I think I was talking about this a little while ago too. So if you eat a lot of sugar, it's going to end up making you crave a lot more sugar. And it's not necessarily because your body needs sugar. So take that with a grain of salt. But what I do want you to understand is that if you start eating a certain way and it doesn't make you feel good, then maybe that's not the right way of eating for you. Also consider that you can get a lot of benefit by adding lots of good things to your diet. And you don't necessarily have to completely remove entire groups of things from your diet. Now, yes, a raw vegan diet is a very healthy diet. All right. And we have a lot less processed food. We have a lot less sodium. There's a lot of benefits. But at the same time, it's not necessarily going to be right for everybody. And especially somebody who's really active, maybe not going to do as well on a raw vegan diet. Now, with that said, there's plenty of active people and athletes out there who are raw vegans. Maybe there's some in the room right now. But I just encourage you, especially when you're looking at these more extreme diets where you're cutting out a lot of different foods from your diet, listen to your body, focus on what you're adding to your diet rather than just removing stuff from your diet. And as you add in more of these healthy foods, you'll actually probably find that you end up eating less meat and eating less sugar and eating less of these other things. But instead of focusing on just not eating those things, focus on adding more vegetables, adding more fruit, adding more of these healthy grains or legumes into your diet. And then listen to your body. And if it makes you feel bad, that's your body's way of telling you that maybe that's not the right diet, or maybe you're just not quite doing it correctly. And then working with a dietitian or a health coach like myself can be helpful in kind of tweaking the diet to figure out, how to give you exactly what you need and have you feel the most vital as possible, have your health in the most optimal state. Sineda Mick, is it bad to sweeten tea with stevia? I talked for like 20 minutes about stevia and other sweeteners at the beginning of the chat. So I would just say once the chat is over, replay it to the beginning. For those of y'all who are in here, I don't think I mentioned this enough, but after the live chat ends, it goes unlisted. And what that means is it won't show up in our regular queue of videos on the channel, but if you go into my live chat playlist, you'll find all of the live chats there. Okay, so you can still watch the live chats. You just need to go to Psychetruth, then go to the playlists, and you'll see the live chat Corrina Rachel playlist, and you'll find all of the archives of all of my live chats there. All right, so I'm not going to go off on stevia because I already talked about it for an awfully long time a little while ago. But no, stevia is not bad. I would opt for honey as even a better way to sweeten tea. But stevia is certainly a good alternative to just using regular sugar. All right, Headley77. I don't recall if you've talked about this before, but Palmer's cocoa butter for men says that it's paraben free. What does it mean when a lotion says it's paraben free? The smell of this lotion is amazing. I also love cocoa butter. So yes. Okay, so what are parabens? A paraben is one of hundreds of different kinds of chemicals that are used in beauty care products. So usually on the ingredient label, often it's one of the last 5 to 10 ingredients. You'll see things like methylparaben, propylparaben. Those are the main ones. But anyways, there's a couple different prefixes that you'll see, and then you'll see the word paraben at the end. So a paraben is essentially, it's been so long. I actually talked about parabens in my my senior thesis paper when I was in college. So that was like 10 years ago. It was like a long time ago. Maybe not quite that long ago. 6 years ago, 5 years ago. Okay, parabens are a class of widely used preservatives in cosmetics and pharmaceuticals. Chemically, they are a peroxyhydrobenzoate ester of some pharmaceutical something or other. Parahydroxybenzoic acid. They are effective preservatives in many formulas. So when I was in college doing my senior thesis paper, which was called The Physiological Effects of Processed Foods and Implications in Health and Disease, I did go off on a little tangent about body care products. And I actually found some different, scientific studies where they were finding parabens concentrated inside of breast cancer tumors. So they could actually, do a biopsy, or I'm sure they're maybe even removing the tumor. But once they start going through the tumor and looking at what's inside of it, one of the things they found is this preservative chemical called paraben, or methylparaben, propylparaben, etc. So, so here's, breastcancerfund.org has a whole measurable concentrations of 6 different parabens have been identified in biopsy samples from breast tumors. Darber 2004 is the citation. The particular parabens were found in relative concentrations that closely parallel their use in the synthesis of cosmetic products. They've also been found in all urine samples examined from a demographically diverse sample of U.S. adults through the NHANES study. Adolescents and adult females had higher levels of methylparaben and propylparaben in their urine than did males or similar ages. But again, the urine of everyone in this demographically diverse sample of U.S. adults all had some presence of this paraben chemical in there. So because parabens have received a lot of attention, and because they've actually now found the chemical inside of breast cancer tumors, it's gotten a lot of attention. So a lot of these different beauty care companies will actually now, put on the label somewhere paraben free. And it's because a lot of the people who are really health conscious know that that's one of the things to look out for. But here's what I want to say about chemicals used in cosmetics. The bottom line is that there are hundreds of different chemicals like paraben that are used in body care products. So I'm talking everything: lotion, sunscreen, soap, shampoo, conditioner, gel, mousse, toothpaste, shaving cream, you name it. Okay? Once you start looking at ingredient labels, once you start looking for these things, you will see it everywhere. And the reason that I can sit here in this chair and tell you to just avoid it, or to tell you to just look for a short ingredient label, or to just tell you use something natural like 100% coconut butter, 100% shea butter, vitamin E oil, something that literally doesn't have any ingredients or weird chemicals added to it at all, is because I have spent hours and hours, I've probably spent hundreds of hours in my life reading ingredient labels, and then coming home, getting on the Google machine and searching for methylparaben and spending another 3 hours reading about this chemical. And what I want you to understand is that there's EDTA, ethylene diamine tetraacetic acid. There's BHT, butylated hydroxytoluene, a really, really popular preservative that you will find in every stick of gum, in almost every candy, any kind of processed meat. You'll find BHT. And what I started to realize after years of doing this is that there are so many of these chemicals, and they are used so pervasively in so many different products, that there is absolutely no way for anyone to really know how much we're being exposed to. So oftentimes what you'll see in defense of these different chemicals is a claim like, oh, it's used in such a tiny concentration that it could never be harmful. Perfectly reasonable statement, right? But what I pose to you is that if this chemical is present in your toothpaste, your shampoo, your aftershave, your soap, your conditioner, your lotion, your, what else? What other products do we use? Ladies, and that's interesting that this article I was just reading to you guys said that adolescents and adult females had higher levels of parabens. Because when we're talking about makeups, creams, wrinkle cream, sunscreen, makeup products, all of these things are loaded with these different chemicals. And paraben is just one little tiny example of one of them. Okay, and it's known to be an endocrine disruptor or a hormone disruptor. So when we think about the prevalence of hormone issues, and we start to look at all of these different chemicals that are known endocrine disruptors like bisphenol A. Anyways, I could go off on a really long tangent about this, but the bottom line is that paraben-free is a good thing to go for. I encourage you to start reading the ingredient labels on these different things, and just to give yourself an idea of that I have now, which is that these things are everywhere. It's not that it's just a little tiny amount. If it's a little tiny amount in every single product I use on my skin every single day, I'm exposing myself to it a lot more than anyone can actually guess at how much we're being exposed to. That's the bottom line here. And the same thing goes for food chemicals. These things are used so widely in so many different foods that we are getting large amounts of them. And they actually have no way of knowing what our exposure is to these different chemicals. Anyway, so really good question. Thank you so much for that. I'm sorry I kind of went off on a little tangent, but that is a topic that is very dear to my heart because I lost my aunt to breast cancer. I think when we're looking at the prevalence of breast cancer, I just can't help but note that a lot of our cosmetics and creams and things we put on our body are loaded with these different chemicals that are now known to be cancerous. At least with food chemicals, there is a certain amount of FDA oversight, but with the things that are used in cosmetics, there's a lot less oversight. There's a lot less safety testing. Okay? And all these women were putting these things on our face in really large amounts. And then the lymph nodes, which are right here, which, so as things are coming through our lymphatic system and I hope I'm not sweating right now, but we've got a lymph node, a very big lymph node right here. And the lymphatic system is all about, helping to get chemicals out of the body, helping to just basically be an evacuation system for anything that the body's trying to get rid of. Well, if our lymphatic system is not flowing properly, and this is a whole other topic, goodness gracious, but for a lot of women, for most of us, the lymphatic system is not as effective at getting rid of these things. And if we have such a huge amount of exposure, fatty tissue is a place where the lymphatic system can kind of deposit these different chemicals. If they can't be secreted, they're sequestered. Okay? Things that can't be secreted from the body are sent to an area to be sequestered, to just be held there, somewhere that hopefully they won't be too damaging. So the fatty tissues of the breast are kind of a grand central station in a way for the different chemicals that are coming in the top portion of our body and that our lymphatic system is trying to filter out. So when I see this finding about breast cancer tumors that contain parabens, that was a big wake-up call for me. And that was a big wake-up call. That was probably the big wake-up call for me that made me switch to trying to just use more natural things on my skin, and started literally reading the ingredient label of every single thing I'm going to put on my skin to try and make sure it does not contain parabens. Roman Rignings is a legend. I have no idea how to say this. Rignhs. Roman is a legend. How does yoga affect your health? Let me count the ways. Let me take a little sip of water first. It is my personal opinion that yoga is one of the absolute most beneficial things for our health, and here is why. Number one, physical movement, moving the body. Moving the body is so important. And this doesn't just have to be yoga, okay? There are a lot of different ways to move your body, okay? And I just think that everyone needs, or everyone would greatly benefit by having an understanding of how important it is to move our body, move our physical body around, not be sedentary. So probably first and foremost, we know that if we are really sedentary all the time, we get aches and pains, we get back pain, we get leg cramps, we get all kinds of stuff. Not only is it physically unpleasant, but literally it's bad for our health as well. So when we're not moving our body around, things become stagnant. And this really kind of, goes right along with what I was just talking about in mentioning the lymphatic system. Because again, not only does yoga and general exercise in general improve the circulatory system, but it also improves the lymphatic system and just the general movement of things all throughout the body. And when we have stagnant energy in our body, our lymphatic system isn't flowing, our circulatory system isn't flowing, our heart isn't strong, we can end up with things like blood clots. Again, I was just talking about the lymphatic system and how important it is that our lymphatic system is working properly, because it's primarily there to help us get rid of different toxins that might be in our body. Digestive system too, of course, right? We all know how unpleasant it is when we have things stagnating in our gut. And largely, physical movement has a lot to do with keeping the digestive tract moving. So what about yoga? Why yoga in specific? Why am I such a big fan of yoga? And like I said, any kind of exercise, any kind of movement is great. But here's what sets yoga apart, in my opinion. A lot of the movements and poses are specifically designed for these different goals, like digestive health. So there are several videos, I know there's several on our channel, that are yoga for digestion. Okay? And there's all of these different twists and these different yoga poses and movements you can do that just help the peristalsis, the just moving of things through the digestive tract, make everything just function a little better. So anyone who suffers from belly aches, heartburn, feelings of indigestion or feelings of just being, constipated or stagnated in the gut, yoga, boom, so helpful. Yoga also helps to specifically, specifically target different muscles of the body and strengthening the body. So we have like the plank pose, which is really great for the arms and the core. We have all of these different poses and different movements that were literally designed to kind of be like a full body workout, so to speak, but to integrate all of these different muscle systems of the body. And that's one of the really cool things about yoga, is that when you do it, you're not just working out one part of the body. It really integrates everything. And I think that that is incredibly, a really incredibly valuable way of approaching fitness. A lot of fitness comes in from a perspective of butt exercises, leg exercises, ab exercises. And that certainly has its merit. And certainly for someone who's working out every day and targeting different areas of the body every day, those types of workouts work really well. But yoga has this kind of what I feel is a special advantage of being able to target those areas in very beneficial ways, very effective ways, but still incorporating the rest of the body and recognizing the fact that our body is all connected. And you can't do something with your back without it engaging your core. And you really can't do anything with your legs without it engaging the muscles of your back that help keep you stable and keep you balanced. Anyways, so I love yoga for that effect. Getting a little bit more into talking about health, let's talk about stress. Let's talk about the stress hormone cortisol. So cortisol is the hormone that is released when we're stressed out. Now, the interesting thing about stress is that the stress response is there as a life-saving mechanism, the fight or flight response, right? So the fight or flight response is there so that if you're walking along and all of a sudden you see a bear, your body immediately floods with this hormone, cortisol, and adrenaline that give you this like superhuman strength and power to run the freak away. And we all kind of know what that adrenaline rush feels like. Okay, and a lot of people get a little high off, or a lot high off of that adrenaline rush, right? But what we need to understand is that our body's stress response is the same whether we're stressed about a deadline at work or whether we're stressed out about a bear. Now, most of us in the modern day and age, we're pretty stressed out individuals, okay? And stress is one of the just absolute worst things for our health. It affects our digestion, it affects our immune system, it affects our body's ability to metabolize fat. So a lot of my health coaching clients that I work with, they're like, oh man, I work out all the time, I eat really well, I don't know what's going on, I can't lose weight. And I'm like, stress can actually prevent you from losing weight. And they're like, what? So I think it just cannot be emphasized enough that stress is incredibly bad for our health. Okay, and stress is something that is inevitable for all of us. It's going to be pretty much impossible for someone to like, oh, I'll just avoid stress. Okay, I understand, easier said than done. That's certainly not possible. So doing things that are specifically aimed at helping our bodies de-stress, helping to lower our cortisol levels, helping our bodies to relax, are incredibly important for our health. So here we have yoga, which is this incredible blend of stress relief, but also even a relaxing yoga session, all right, is still giving you all of those benefits, helping improve circulation, helping improve the circulation of your lymphatic system, just helping in general to keep things moving and keep things functioning in the body. So yoga is incredible for stress. Somebody asked earlier about how to get better sleep, how to get deeper sleep, I think. I just saw it go by because the comments are always like loading and pushing each other down. So I just saw it in passing, but I saw something about deep sleep. So if we're talking about trouble with sleeping, here again, yoga comes into the rescue because it's incredibly calming. It really helps us to lower our cortisol levels because it still involves movement. It's going to be really helpful for helping you get to sleep. So when we think about tension in our muscles, and I've got some tension in my muscle right now, I'm talking about it. Not only is it physically painful, but those physical tensions in the body where our muscles become inflamed or our muscles become tense, they also hold emotional tension. And it can kind of create this kind of negative feedback loop where our muscles are holding tension. It's making us more stressed out. It's making us more emotional. It's making us more irritable. And then it feeds into that stress loop and it increases the tension. So we talk about things like neck pain, back pain, leg pain, sciatica. Again, yoga comes to the rescue and provides such a huge amount of benefit. If you're using yoga to work out and you're doing things like power yoga or yoga for weight loss, again, this is incredible workout. It's a full body workout, but it still actually has these positive, relaxing, rejuvenating benefits on your body. I could just go on and on and on about yoga, but I think I've already talked for about 10 or 20 minutes about it. So, yoga has so many benefits to our health. And I know a lot of us out there, maybe we're nervous about going to a yoga class. Do yoga at home. Watch the yoga videos on YouTube. There's a lot of them, not only on Psychetruth. I mean, we have hundreds on Psychetruth, but if you don't find something you like on our channel, there's lots of different yoga out there. And the cool thing about it is that, you'll find some yoga practitioners and instructors who maybe tackle more of the spiritual side, the spiritual elements of yoga. But then there's also lots of yoga teachers and yoga classes and yoga videos that don't touch on that part at all, that don't get into spirituality at all. Now, yoga is a lot about accepting your body, being loving and kind towards your body. That's another thing I love about yoga. But if you are kind of turned off by the spiritual element of yoga, know that there is tons of different yoga classes, yoga videos out there that do not incorporate that spiritual element at all. So you can really have it with or without that element. And I just encourage you to look around, find a yoga teacher you like, and you will just feel so amazing. Once you start doing these different movements and poses and stretches, you will just feel so, so good. You will understand the benefits of yoga. So hopefully that answer was helpful to you. I love it when we see comments like, this was my first time doing yoga, I feel great. I love that. I would love anyone in the room here who has not tried yoga before, just give it a shot. Put on a yoga video. If it's your very first time, check out, if you search yoga for complete beginners on our channel, there are several yoga for complete beginners. There's something called safe stretches for beginners that Courtney Bell did, and I think Jen Hillman did one also. And those are great if you're actually, if you're suffering from an injury, or maybe you just haven't done any kind of movement or motion in many years. Start with those safe stretches for beginners, or yoga for complete beginners, because they really have designed these routines to slowly help get people's bodies used to these different poses and movements. The first time you do it, it may feel a little funny. You'll probably feel like you aren't doing it right. But the cool thing about yoga is that there is no right or wrong way. You just do it. And you get that benefit just from doing it. Anyways, I love yoga. All right, what about, wow, Teresa Randolph apparently doesn't like me very much. Okay, just me. What about coconut sugar? And then Geriosity down here says, sugar in the raw has a new organic cane sugar, a great unprocessed white sugar. Okay, so I did talk a lot earlier about sugar and sweeteners already. So opting for things that are in their most natural state, maple syrup, honey, and dates are kind of my 3 favorite sweeteners. When we talk about things like agave nectar, coconut sugar, and stevia, yes, these are natural sweeteners. They come from natural sources, but there's usually a lot of processing, actually, that goes into making them. So again, honey, maple syrup, dates, obviously fruit is probably the best way to satisfy a sugar craving. But in terms of things that can be added to tea or coffee or baking or whatever, applesauce is a great thing to bake with. Or just, grind up a bunch of apples yourself in the blender, and you can bake with it. Opting for these natural things. So yes, coconut sugar, stevia, agave nectar, all of these things are 100 times healthier for you than white sugar. But you don't want to go crazy with them because they are still processed ingredients or processed foods. My recommendation at the end of my earlier little blurb about sweeteners and sugar was to just focus on mixing it up, so that you're not just exclusively having agave nectar or exclusively having coconut sugar. A little bit of stevia, a little bit of coconut sugar, a little bit of agave nectar, favoring the honey and maple syrup as much as possible. And then you're really going to, hopefully ensure that you're not getting too much of any one of those natural sweeteners. Awesome Dancer Raina. What type of salad dressing would you recommend for salad? So when it comes to salad dressing, and gosh, this is such a good question. So if you put in salad dressing on Psychetruth, I actually did a video. I'm pretty sure. I know I did. I am 99.9% sure that I did a video showing making your own salad dressing. Most of the store-bought salad dressings are really not doing you any favors. Now, I will say this. Anything that gets you to eat a salad is better than you not eating a salad. So what I say a lot is, if it takes bacon bits and ranch dressing to get you to eat a salad, then so be it. Because it is going to be more beneficial for you to have eaten some of those vegetables than to not eat the vegetables at all. Okay, so at the point that you're eating salads, okay, and you're ready to step it up the next level and eat the healthiest possible salad that you can, then you really want to stay away from store-bought salad dressings. And again, use the little rule of thumb of glancing at the ingredient label. If you've got a long old list of ingredients on that salad dressing, put it back, okay? Most of the salad dressings have lots of sodium. Some of them even have MSG, which is just unheard of, but looking for something that has a minimal amount of ingredients and certainly a minimal amount of weird chemical looking names, okay, is going to be the best bet. Now, making a salad dressing is super easy. If I'm at a restaurant, a lot of times I will just ask them for some vinegar. Okay, so you can use any type of vinegar. You can just use the plain white vinegar. You can use balsamic vinegar. There's like a kind of lighter colored, kind of purpley colored vinegar, I think is like red wine vinegar. And just a little bit of vinegar on a salad is good enough for me. Okay, but I eat a lot of salad. If you are looking for the more kind of like classic salad dressing, taste and texture, you add a little bit of oil as well, like olive oil. And again, like I mentioned earlier in the chat, if you're having olive oil uncooked, okay, you're having it just straight out of the bottle, natural, now you're getting the benefits from it. So make your own salad dressing with oil and vinegar. You can add in a little salt and pepper are always nice. So actually the name salad comes from that they used to put salt on lettuce before there was ever salad dressing or anything. They put a little salt on their salad, and that's why they call it salad. Little etiology lesson. A little salt and pepper. One of my favorite things to do if I'm looking to kind of perk my salad up is add some honey to your oil and vinegar dressing. You don't need very much, but OMG, it is so good. You sweeten up the dressing a little bit. And then I'll usually just use a fork or something to stir it up. Now, if you want that creamy ranch kind of dressing, you can use things like pepitas. Sunflower seeds are probably my go-to. And put them in the blender with your oil and vinegar dressing, and boom, you have this awesome creamy dressing. You can even use cashews. You can really use kind of any nut or any seed in the blender, blend it up with your oil and vinegar, and you're going to have an awesome salad. Lemon and lime can work as an alternative to vinegar on a salad and be really great. Avocado on a salad is really, really great. Again, if you have a blender and you want to, spruce it up a little bit, you can put the avocado in with your sunflower seeds and oil and vinegar, and now you have this awesome creamy avocado dressing. I'm making myself really, really hungry right now. Just saying. Okay, so really good question there. Awesome dancer, Raina. Thank you for leaving it. I love salad dressing, and now I'm really hungry for eating a salad, so that's great. So dearly Francis, okay, this has kind of been a sweet chat, a sweet themed chat. Dearly Francis says, what sugars are bad to use? So your refined white sugar. So anytime you look on the label and it just says sugar, okay, that's the refined white sugar that I'm talking about. It's bad, 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 bad. Now, even worse than sugar You have things like high fructose corn syrup. All right, where they've actually extracted out the sweetness of the corn and concentrated it down into this ooey gooey high fructose corn syrup, just, liquid sugar. Okay? Bad. Bad. And probably made with GMO corn. Even worse than sugar and high fructose corn syrup are your artificial sweeteners. So that's aspartame, acesulfame potassium, or acesulfame K. And I just encourage you, look at the ingredient label and you will see it. I know right now I'm saying it to you and you're like, who? What'd she just say? Acesulfame potassium, ACESULFAME, acesulfame. Sometimes you won't see aspartame on the label anymore because they know that we know to look for it now. Okay? So what you'll see on the label is this acesulfame potassium or acesulfame K. Sucralose is another artificial sweetener. These are the guys that are in the pastel colored packets when you go to a restaurant. Okay? Sweet and Low, Equal. Okay? These are artificial sweeteners. They are absolutely the most horrific thing for you. And they are actually even worse for you than high fructose corn syrup and sugar. So I literally would rather somebody drink a regular Coke than drink Diet Coke. I would rather you have the full sugar, regular candy bar than the sugar-free candy bar. I would rather you have the gum with sugar in it than have the sugar-free gum. Now here's what's scary, and here's what horrifies me. 5 to 10 years ago, you'd only see the artificial sweeteners in the diet foods, the sugar-free foods. Now you see them everywhere. Slim Fast, aspartame, acesulfame potassium, lots of your different candy bars, almost literally every type of gum. So I was flying over July 4th, flew up to Philadelphia. So I'm in the airport and I want to get some gum so that my ears don't pop. I read the ingredients on every pack of gum in the airport. I mean, obviously for a brand, I didn't read every single variation of flavor, but for every brand that there was of gum, I read the ingredient label looking for one that didn't have artificial sweeteners, and I didn't find one. And so I didn't chew gum on the plane, and my ears wouldn't pop for like 3 days when I got off the airplane. My big sob story about chewing gum. But the bottom line here is that if you're eating processed foods, you're eating candy, you're eating junk food, okay, you're getting these artificial sweeteners. And used to, we could avoid artificial sweeteners by just staying away from the diet and sugar-free foods, but not anymore. They're everywhere. And I just encourage you, look over at the ingredient list and read. And when you start seeing these things, I actually got an email from someone, and she was like, God, Corrina, thank you so much for your live chats. I've actually started reading ingredient labels now, and it's so weird. It's like I can actually hear you in my head, telling me all of these things. And it's just been so crazy seeing all of these things on the ingredient label after you talk about them. And I was like, yeah. I mean, I almost started crying when I got that email. It was so sweet. Because I sit here for 2 hours a week, talking about this stuff to you guys. And I really do appreciate it when you guys reach out to me. I love getting your emails and stuff like that, letting me know that this information is helpful. But anyways, so I would rather you have regular soda than diet soda. I'd rather you chew the regular gum than the sugar-free gum. But like I said, even a lot of these regular sweets and candies, they still have the artificial sweeteners in them. Those artificial sweeteners are known to be neurotoxic, which means they kill your brain cells. So if you started eating a lot of sugar-free foods and soon you felt stupider than you were before you did it, it literally could be because the artificial sweeteners are killing your brain cells. And it's really sad and it's really scary, in my opinion. So eat natural foods, eat fruit, eat honey, eat dates, eat smoothies. You can even make your own like awesome ice cream, okay? With just like bananas and strawberries. You could put cream in it if you want, or you could make it vegan and not put any cream in it at all. And just blend up the fruit and it makes this like amazing ice cream. Put some raw cacao in there, raw cacao powder. Ah, it's off the chain, y'all. Anyways, okay. So I hope that I answered that question. So just me. Oh, excuse me. Just me says, for me, weight loss came with a complete lifestyle change. I had been on so many roller coaster diets before that. Sanada Mamik. I apologize. I'm butchering your name. Okay, how can I stop late night binging? I eat hearty portions all day and exercise, but when I snack at night, it's hard to just stop or just have one thing. I don't know why I'm... You know what it is? I think it's this light. I have like a light right here on my face. Anytime I've got lights in my face, it just like makes me yawn. Okay, late night binging. Now, this is a really tough call. This is why I became a health coach. Because, you know, I've been making videos on YouTube for like 5 or 6 years now about nutrition. And I always get questions all the time. And eventually it just got to the point where I was going back and forth so much via email with people, asking them questions about their diet and all of this. I was like, this is ridiculous. I should just be able to do this in real time, you know, in a conversation. So I got my health coaching certification, and now I actually do like one-on-one health coaching sessions with people via Skype or phone. Some people still like to do it via email, but I like the Skype situation so you can really communicate with each other. But anyway, so this would be a great example of where a one-on-one health coaching session comes in really handy. Because when somebody asks a question like this, I have a lot of questions to ask them. What types of things are you eating? How late are you staying up? When is the last meal you eat before this late night binging? So the question is like, are you eating dinner at 6 o'clock and then binging at 2 in the morning? Are you eating adequate amounts of fat and protein? One of the biggest causes I have discovered of people overeating is that they're not getting enough fats in their diet. By and large, when I work with people who have been on a fat-free diet or a low-fat diet, they have an incredibly bad problem with overeating and binging. And conversely, when I work with people who come to me with problems of overeating and binging, I usually discover that they're not eating enough fats, or they're avoiding fattening foods because they're trying to lose weight. And then guess what happens? You're avoiding eating fat, so now you're hungry all the time. You can never be satisfied. You never get full. Even after you eat a huge amount of food, you still feel hungry. A lot of this can all be resolved simply by eating more healthy fats. So again, avocados, nuts, seeds, fish, olives, olive oil. These are all really good, healthy fats, okay? And they help fill us up. You know, butter, olive oil. These things taste great. And as long as we're not heating them up to really high temperatures, okay, they even can have some health benefits to us, okay? So that would be one big part of the question that I would want to ask you, you know, is what types of things are you eating? Are you getting adequate amounts of fat during the day? You know, if you're exercising at night, okay, because she says, I eat healthy portions, or I eat hearty portions all day, and I exercise, but then I start snacking at night and I just can't stop. Okay, and I end up binging. So the question is, are you exercising at night? And if you're exercising at night, then it probably is going to make sense for you to have some kind of a snack or have some kind of a small meal after you work out. They recommend that you have protein within 30 minutes after a workout in order to give your body all of the amino acids that it's going to need right after you've done this workout. So that would be one consideration. So at night, when we're hungry, the things I would recommend that you eat are things that are high in protein and high in these healthy fats, because these healthy fats are going to help to really satisfy our hunger and keep us full through the night, which is really important. Anyone who wakes up in the middle of the night hungry knows how awful that is and how important it is to make sure that you've eaten well enough at night to sustain you through a full night of sleep. So your healthy sources of protein, you can use animal sources of protein, okay? If you're going to be eating animal meats to get your protein, remember what we were talking about earlier in the chat, which is that you cook them at low heat. Don't fry them. Don't barbecue them. I know that fried foods and barbecued foods taste amazing. I totally understand that. They're just really, really, really not good for you. And especially if we're talking about post-workout, you want to eat something that is most bioavailable, most easy for your body to break down and use. You really want to make sure that at that time you're having something that is cooked at a low temperature or is minimally processed. So if you think about when you go to the butcher department in the grocery store and there's a big hunk of dead animal, and actually shave the meat off, okay? There's no ingredients. If you go into the little section and get the deli meat, if you look at the package, there's usually an ingredient list. That's what you want to avoid. All right, but you don't have to eat animals to get protein. Of course, eggs are another good protein source. That would be another animal type of protein. But you can also get protein from all of the different nuts and seeds. Your legumes give you a great amount of protein. We get protein from quinoa. So if you do want a little bit of carbohydrate as well, especially after a workout, you probably want a little bit of carb. Quinoa is a great way to go, or brown rice, because you're getting the carbohydrate, but you're also getting the protein. So a great post-workout or nighttime snack might be a little bit of brown rice with some butter melted on top and some avocado. I really like having nuts at night or having some kind of almond milk. Cashew milk is really, really good. It's a little bit more expensive, unfortunately, but cashew milk is one of those things that I'll have at night, to splurge. Oh yeah, I'm going to have some cashew milk. Have some good healthy sources of fat, have some good healthy sources of protein, stay away from the refined carbohydrates like bread and pasta, especially at night. Okay, the ginger gymnast, not just any ginger gymnast, that ginger gymnast, I just pulled my hair down. Okay, do you know any good recipes for a healthy breakfast? No, not one. Just kidding. Okay, healthy breakfast. That's a good question. So I actually just did a video. I think it just went up like literally 2 days ago about breakfast foods. And I just went through some of the different big myths about breakfast. So so I would recommend that you go watch that video if you are thinking about breakfast right now. Go check out that video. To answer your question, some of my favorite things to eat for breakfast, again, I quinoa and brown rice are probably like two of my most consumed foods. So quinoa or brown rice in the morning. If I want something savory, then maybe I'll melt some butter, have some avocado, maybe even some olives. I also like that smoked salmon. Smoked salmon's like really good. So sometimes I'll have smoked salmon for breakfast. I like having yogurt for breakfast sometimes as well. And in my breakfast video, I talked about yogurt and how you actually want to eat the full fat yogurt. You don't want the one that's fat-free. You don't want the Greek yogurt that's made with fat-free milk. You want the one that has the good healthy fats in it. That's what fills you up. That's what helps keep you satisfied. All right, you guys, so I just looked at the clock and realized that it is 5 to 7. I actually have a conference call at 7 p.m. So I'm going to have to go ahead and end the live chat. It's so sad. I could sit here for probably 5 hours and answer your questions. I would have to take a little snack break at some point. But I truly love being here and answering y'all's questions. I could sit here all night, and I totally would. But on my roster for the evening, I have this conference call at 7 with somebody who's interviewing me about YouTube. I don't really know. And then I'm going to go over to Mike's house and do an ASMR shoot. So in a couple hours, this will be me. Whisper, 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 whisper. Okay, sorry, being silly. But anyways, so I have a long night ahead of me. So I want to apologize. I know that there's just a boatload of questions that I did not get to. Unfortunately, there is absolutely just no way for me to get to all of the questions in the live chat. Again, if you leave your questions on the Facebook page, so if you follow Psychetruth Facebook, every Wednesday in the early afternoon, I'll post the little live chat announcement, and if you leave your question there, I will answer it at the very beginning of the chat. So it's really the only way to guarantee that your question gets answered. If you're interested in learning more about me and my health coaching, you can visit CorrinaRachel.com, and you can send me an email at emailcorrinanow@gmail.com. And if you go to any of my videos on Psychetruth, there are links to my website in the description, and you can find my email on the health coaching page of my website. If you're like, how in the world do I spell Corrina? Although it is in the title of this video. Thank you all so much for being here. I am honored and humbled that you would come and spend this time with me today. I look forward to seeing you all again next week, if not sooner. It's time for live chat. Ooh, the Psychetruth live chat. Every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time on your YouTube machine. Live chat, live chat, live chat, live chat. I'll answer your questions about whatever you want to talk about on the Psychetruth. Live chat, live chat, live chat, live chat. The Psychetruth. Live chat. Live chat. Live chat. Live chat. Ooh. Live chat. Thank you all so very much for being here with me today. I look forward to seeing you all next week. If you can't wait till then, shoot me over an email at emailcorrinanow@gmail.com. Thank you all so much, and I will see you next time. Till then, in health, wellness, and lots of vegetables. Thank you so much for coming.